Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about some deep sleepers for fantasy football in 2021. These are the sleepers that are in that nice REM sleep, that deep sleep, and you guys are going to be able to find them late in your 2021 fantasy football drafts. In this video, I'm going to be talking about two running backs, two wideouts, as well as a tight end that are deep sleepers for fantasy football in 2021. Now, the first player I actually talk about in today's video is technically not a deep sleeper because they go closer to the 100 number based upon current underdog average draft position, but the rest of the guys are going much later. So if at any point inside of this video you guys end up enjoying, you end up having a great time, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you are new. I post content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first guy we want to talk about today, underdog ADP 107.8, running back of the Arizona Cardinals, James Conner. Now, going into last year, I was pretty high on James Conner. Not saying that I thought he was going to be like a first or second round pick, but I thought that his value was actually pretty solid where he was going, because I believe that when healthy, James Conner had top 10 potential in fantasy football. But last year, he obviously saw some injury complications, as well as the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line was complete and utter dog shit, to where James Conner was basically just set out there to be killed. He was just sent out there to get squished, to let the offensive line open wide, and for him to get picked up and slammed directly into the ground. He stood no chance with that garbage-ass offensive line last season in 13 games, finishing as running back 27 in PPR, 26.5 PPR, and running back 25 in standard, averaging 12.7 PPR points per game, 11.3 half PPR points per game, and 10 standard points per game. From a points per game perspective, Mr. James Conner was running back 28 in PPR, 29.5 PPR, and running back 28 in standards. His numbers were just not all that good. He had 169 carries, which ranked 19th at the running back position for 720 rushing yards. He also had 43 targets for 35 receptions, 215 receiving yards, and 6 total touchdowns. So overall, James Conner had a pretty down season from what we've seen in his past. Ever since Le'Veon Bell went on that jet ski extravaganza instead of playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, James Conner fit perfectly in this offense. He fit like a glove, O.J. Simpson style, and James Conner was playing very, very well. But again, last season, the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line was dog shit. They were throwing the ball so much because the offensive line simply could not block for James Conner. And then when James Conner obviously missed a couple of games, the other running backs weren't doing all that well as well due to the offensive line, which is going to be a worry this season for Najee Harris going into drafts, especially with the fact that they just cut one of their all-pro guards, which just makes no sense. But again, now James Conner moved in the offseason. It seemed like he wasn't going to get that deal done with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and ultimately that was true. So he goes to the Arizona Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury's air raid offense. Now, what does this mean for James Conner? Right now, he's slotted in my opinion, and in the opinion of most people when you're looking at these depth charts, as the running back 2 on the Arizona Cardinals behind running back Chase Edmonds. The argument I will make for James Conner is relatively simple. It's the fact that Chase Edmonds comes with so much risk when you are drafting him right now in fantasy football. He comes with a risk because he was never that guy in the Arizona Cardinals offense. Even when Kenyon Drake went down last season, even when Kenyon Drake was struggling, Chase Edmonds was frankly never really given the opportunity to carry the rock at a rate to be a top-end fantasy football option, a top-end real NFL running back. So what that makes me think is that maybe Cliff Kingsbury doesn't believe in James Conner, that he doesn't believe in Chase Edmonds. Maybe Cliff Kingsbury wants to do a 1-2 punch attack at the running back position using both James Conner as well as Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds is touted pretty well for his pass-catching ability, but how much better at pass catching is Chase Edmonds than James Conner? Probably not by much. If anything, James Conner may be a better pass-catching running back because we've seen James Conner do it in Pittsburgh at a relatively solid rate. So my thoughts on this is that if you're going to draft Chase Edmonds, you might as well draft James Conner. And if you don't take Chase Edmonds, you might as well take James Conner anyways, because if James Conner isn't getting all these carries early on in the season, his back doesn't get blown out because he typically always ends up getting hurt. And he's able to stay healthy behind Chase Edmonds, and then if something was to happen to Chase Edmonds, or if Cliff Kingsbury realizes, hey, maybe James Conner's actually better than Chase Edmonds, and we see James Conner take over this backfield, he will be well worth pick 107 or wherever he's going right now, pick number 107.8 based upon current ADP. It just seems like a no-brainer that with the skill set that James Conner has, that he could easily surpass Chase Edmonds on the roster, or if Chase Edmonds was to go down, that James Conner becomes the guy, and then they realize, hey, James Conner's actually much better than Chase Edmonds, and he will remain the guy for the rest of the season for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I understand the injury concerns are huge with James Conner. Every single year, this guy's missing games. Week 5 of 2019 has an ankle sprain. Week 6 of 2019, a quadriceps strain. Week 8 of 2019, AC joint sprain. Week 16, 2019 has a quadriceps contusion. Week 14, a quads injury. Again, missing one game. So this guy does get hurt left and right. That's kind of an issue with James Conner. But again, maybe not as the bell cow running back in Arizona. He is able to beat down those injuries and stay healthy. I do think that James Conner is a very good NFL running back, and a lot of people are sleeping heavily when there is a very good chance that this guy could easily beat out Chase Edmonds, or the fact that Cliff Kingsbury just doesn't believe in Chase Edmonds and wants James Conner to be the guy, because why wouldn't they just bring in some schlub as the backup, right? Bring in a guy, not James Conner, to be the backup, because James Conner is actually good and could be a NFL caliber starting running back one in real life, and does have top 12 potential in fantasy if he is given the starting job. Obviously, a big worry with Arizona has to be the fact that Kyler Murray runs the ball so much and is going to vulture some touchdowns and some rushing opportunity away from James Conner. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to believe in the talent here and take him later in drafts. Now, on to the true deep sleepers. Right here, we got John Brown, wide receiver of the Las Vegas Raiders. Current underdog ADP is pick 152.1. Now, John Brown was a guy that I was touting heavily going into last season. I was basically John Brown's biggest fan for the Buffalo Bills. I thought he was the nice number 2 option in this offense with Stefon Diggs, and the fact that John Brown had such a good connection with Josh Allen made me like him a lot. It made me kind of worried about Stefon Diggs, and obviously, I was wrong on both ends. I was wrong on the fact that I thought John Brown would be able to be really good, and I was also wrong on the fact that that would hurt Stefon Diggs, because Stefon Diggs was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL last season, thus making him one of the best wide receivers in fantasy football. Last year, John Brown played in 9 total games, finishing as wide receiver 83 in PPR, 79.5 PPR, and wide receiver 76 in standard, averaging 10.8 PPR points per game, 8.9 half PPR points per game, and 7.1 standard points per game. From a points per game perspective, that made Mr. John Brown wide receiver 52 in PPR, tied with Michael Gallup, wide receiver number 53 in half PPR, and wide receiver number 48 in standard, tied with Michael Gallup, Laviska Shenault, and Preston Williams. So John Brown was a not-so-hot wide receiver last year, but a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that he was hurt for a lot of the season. Last year, he suffered from a knee sprain, making him miss 2 games from week number 5, and then he was just missing other games left and right, but there's no medical history report on those games on playerprofiler.com as to why he was missing so many games. So John Brown obviously last year missed a bunch of games, but now he has been injected into a new offense with a quarterback that I actually really like. A lot of people typically hate on Derek Carr. They don't understand that Derek Carr is just a pretty average NFL quarterback, and while that may not ever win the Las Vegas Raiders a Super Bowl, nothing else is helping Derek Carr win that fucking Super Bowl. So I think that John Brown now has a very good shot of being the wide receiver one of the Las Vegas Raiders. Sure, they have Hunter Renfrow. Sure, they have Henry Ruggs. But I actually believe that John Brown is the most talented wide receiver in this offense. His whole NFL career, ever since he was drafted in 2014, John Brown has been a pretty solid wide receiver. And more of in 2019, we really saw what John Brown can be. In his 2019 NFL season, John Brown had quite the year. He had 115 targets, 72 receptions, 1,060 receiving yards, and 6 total touchdowns. And obviously, in 2020, that would lead me to have quite high hopes. Only playing in 9 games, again, had 52 targets. He had 33 receptions, 3 total touchdowns, and 458 receiving yards. But now he has the potential to be the wide receiver one on the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'm basically going to take any shot on a wide receiver late in drafts that I believe could be the number one target on a team. Why wouldn't you? It's so simple. You just take John Brown because he has the upside of being the number one target in an offense. It's very hard to find the number one wide receiver in an offense in fantasy football outside of the top 7 rounds. Early on, obviously, fantasy football drafts are just dominated 50 Shades of Grey style by the running back position. But as it gets later on, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th round, you're seeing all these wide receivers go left and right who are wide receiver ones on teams. And then people start taking the wide receiver 2, maybe even the wide receiver 3s in some cases on teams. So why not take the shot in the final round of the draft? Basically going near undrafted right now, pick 152.1. Why not take the upside shot that John Brown can be the guy in this offense? And sure, maybe he doesn't end up being the wide receiver one in targets. Obviously, Darren Waller could lead the team in targets, and that would not surprise me at all. But he could still be the number 2 guy in this offense, that being John Brown. So I think that his upside is very, very high for a guy that legitimately no one's talking about. No one's talking about how much potential John Brown has in Las Vegas. And if you're a lot like me and you're not a big believer in Henry Ruggs' second year coming of age, coming of understanding what the fuck he needs to do at the NFL level, if you think he's just a fast guy, kind of like how I think about it, then John Brown has a very easy path to becoming the wide receiver one here in Las Vegas. So I like John Brown a whole lot. Before we get into the next player, I want to ask if you guys did end up enjoying thus far, to please leave a like down below. It helps me a lot. It makes these videos be seen by more other people, thus helping me out a ton. And if you are not already subscribed, please make sure to do that so that I can help you guys out as well to win your 2021 fantasy football draft, or not your draft. I want you to win your draft, and then I want you to go after the draft, keep on watching, win on the waiver wire, and win every single week so you can take home that beautiful 2021 fantasy football championship, because your whole league isn't won in the draft. Surprisingly, it's not. A lot of people, they study heavily for the draft, and then during the season, they're sleeping, they're not paying the fuck attention, and then you end up losing after you crafted this beautiful team. So make sure you guys are watching all season long. It is going to help you guys win your league. So next up, we got James White, running back of the New England Deflatriots. In 14 games last year, James White finished as running back 42 in PPR, 47.5 PPR, and running back number 57 in standard, averaging 8.3 PPR points per game, 6.6 half PPR points per game, and 4.8 standard points per game. Meaning, from a points per game perspective, Mr. James White was running back 50 in PPR, 57.5 PPR, and running back number 66 in standard. Now, just like with John Brown, just like with James Conner, I was a big fan of James White last year. With the addition of Cam Newton, I saw James White as like fucking discount Walmart version, Kmart version of Christian McCaffrey. Now again, I understand Christian McCaffrey is probably the best running back in the NFL, so James White is nothing in comparison of that, but he does have very good receiving abilities, which is what elevates James Conner, or was what elevates Christian McCaffrey to that next level. So I thought James White was going to be a dump-off machine last season. He was going in like the 6th, 7th, 8th round in the middle of drafts, and I felt very comfortable drafting him there. But frankly, it was a swing and a complete and utter miss. I swung, and the pitch has been in the catcher's mitt for 5 minutes, basically. That was how bad of a swing and a miss it was. His underdog ADP right now is 6.6. Now, this running back room in New England is going to be led by Damian Harris, in my opinion. I think Damian Harris is the guy in this offense, and I actually believe that Damian Harris has good pass-catching abilities, which we saw in his collegiate days, but it seems like Bill Belichick has not yet kind of scratched the surface with that. He's not wet the beak with Damian Harris's pass-catching ability, which makes me think James White is going to be on the field a whole bunch. And James White has been a very talented running back for fantasy football because of his pass-catching ability. It was never really because James White is going to get 200-plus carries. James White is going to get 150-plus carries. No, he's not that guy to be doing that. Last year, he only got 35 carries. In 2019, he had 67. So he's not going to be a guy getting an overwhelming amount of touches, but he is going to be seeing a lot of receiving ability, or a lot of targets in this offense. He had 62 targets last year in just 14 games, 9th highest at the running back position, 49 receptions, 9th highest at running back, 375 receiving yards, 8th highest at running back, and 3 total touchdowns. So James White is clearly going to be a target gobbler in this offense, but the question is, will he be buried again like he was last year? It seemed like a lot of guys were getting these touches, but now that Rex Burkhead is gone, that opens the door even further for James White. Now, James White dealt with a lot last season that I personally believe actually had a significant impact on his NFL season due to the stuff that happened in his family. Obviously, I don't want to bring all of that up because, frankly, it's sad. It's sad to talk about, but I think that around a year kind of removed from that, maybe James White is in a much better mindset right now and hopefully will be able to play better. Again, I feel terrible for James White and I hope that he is okay because what happened is obviously something that sticks with people, but I do think that James White is a very talented NFL running back. I think that James White should have won the MVP of that Super Bowl when they beat down the Atlanta Falcons in that 28-3 comeback. James White was such a big player in that game as to why they ended up winning. I think that James White truly is going to surprise a lot of people because he beat them down last year. He made people mad, but he is going so under the rug right now. 183.6 is his average draft position. No one's even fucking thinking about drafting this guy, when in reality, he's the running back 2 on an offense that likes to use the running back in the pass-catching game and on a team that likes to run the ball. So again, you don't even have to buy completely in on the narrative that James White could be the running back 1. Because he's not going to be. But going at this ADP, it's certainly worth a shot, especially in a PPR or a half PPR format. In standard, James White is basically kind of irrelevant unless Damian Harris was to get hurt again. Knock on wood. We don't hope for injuries over here. Next up, we have a tight end that has been freed from the wrath of Adam Gase, and it could finally be the season that we've been waiting for the last 7 zillion years. Tight end of the New York Football Jets, Christopher Herndon, underdog ADP 212. So again, a player that no one is thinking about, but we have seen some qualities out of Chris Herndon that will make us think that he could be a quality NFL tight end. And we've also seen the fact that what happens when Adam Gase leaves these guys, when Adam Gase takes his hands off these dudes or takes his words out of their ears, he's not their head coach, then magically these guys become the second best fucking player to ever grace the NFL. With Ryan Tannehill, Adam Gase is gone, obviously. He goes from Miami to the Titans, takes Mariota's job, basically throws Mariota into irrelevancy, and becomes a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. We saw it with Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry is playing pretty solid in Miami. Then he goes to Cleveland. He's playing solid again. He is just an uptick at the position. We've seen it all over the place. I think we're going to see it with Sam Darnold now going to Carolina, and I think we can really see it here with Chris Herndon, tight end of the New York Football Jets. Chris Herndon is 6'4", 253 pounds. This guy is a brick shithouse, and Zach Wilson notably likes throwing the ball to the tight end position, which makes me like Chris Herndon even more. Last year, Chris Herndon was a absolute doozy. He was a guy that I kind of talked up a little bit as just a late round dart throw, right? Nothing much more than that, and that's kind of what I think about him this season. In 16 games he played, he had 13 starts, finishing as tight end 33 in PPR, 35.5 PPR, and tight end number 34 in standard, averaging 4.6 PPR points per game, 3.6 half PPR points per game, and 2.7 standard points per game, meaning from points per game perspective, he was tight end 41 in PPR, tied with Jack Doyle, tight end 42.5 PPR, tied with Tyler Kroft, and tight end 41 in standard, tied with third leg Greg Olsen. So again, no numbers that I can bring up here are going to tell you that Chris Herndon is an elite NFL tight end, and I don't think that he is that, but I do believe that without Adam Gase, something beautiful happens to these players, and magically, they just go to the next level. I'm not a big fan of anime or Dragon Ball Z, but I'm pretty sure they do this Super Saiyan shit, I think is what it is called, and you become the next level. You go from being Chris Herndon to Chris Herndon Super Saiyan level without Adam Gase. That's honestly how I feel about this situation, and again, he's going undrafted. He's a complete and utter dart throw as your tight end number 2 on your team, but I do believe that he has immense upside, especially with how much Zach Wilson ended up targeting tight ends in college at BYU, especially last season. So now that no one's really talking about Chris Herndon and he's not getting the hype train that he's gotten for the last couple of years, maybe it really is Chris Herndon's season. And final player to be talking about, rookie out of Purdue, second round pick, 21-year-old Rondell Moore, wide receiver of the Arizona Cardinals, 2 Arizona Cardinals in this deep sleeper video. Underdog ADP 139.1. This man is fast as fuck. A 4.32 pro day 40, adjusted 4.37, 40-yard dash, 96th percentile. This man is Lightning McQueen off the blocks. 96th percentile burst score, 94th percentile agility score, 73rd percentile catch radius out of Purdue. Now, the reason why I like Rondell Moore so much is because Christian Kirk's season has been officially fucking slain. It has been stabbed in the chest like Tyrod Taylor from his doctor. Rondell Moore is now going to spread this offense's ass wide open and dive in. Dive right in there to become the guy. Christian Kirk, he's not that guy. Larry Fitzgerald is not that guy anymore. I don't even know if Larry Fitzgerald is, I'm sorry if this is a fucking stupid take. Maybe Larry Fitzgerald has signed, but I don't even know if Larry Fitzgerald's on the team. It's not going to matter, though. The dude has the biggest ass in the NFL, but frankly, it does not matter because your ass size doesn't do anything for fantasy football points. He is going to basically be irrelevant when it comes to Rondell Moore's case to becoming a breakout wide receiver. Christian Kirk has been given all the chances. He's been given everything, but he can never string it together. Christian Kirk will have a game where he absolutely destroys a defense. Then the next week, he plays like shit, and then he plays great again. Then he plays like shit, plays like shit, plays like shit, plays like shit, like 7 times in a row. Then he has a good game. People are back in on Christian Kirk, and then you pick him up just to realize that the guy's not that good. There's obviously going to be some worries with Rondell Moore because the fact is that he's 5'7". I stand taller than Rondell Moore, but that's okay because he's still going to be solid at the NFL level. He's a guy that you can also just put the ball in his hands. You just hand this guy the ball. He can run left. He can run right. He can do all of these things and put up big numbers at the NFL level. So let Rondell Moore sizzle late in your draft. Draft him because of the upside as being a wide receiver 2 in a very solid offense in Arizona. That is my only thoughts on Rondell Moore, is the fact that he looked pretty good at college. I understand that he's short, but as long as Cliff Kingsbury, who I think should be able to figure it out, Cliff Kingsbury is a pretty solid coach, just getting the ball in Rondell Moore's hand, giving him these jet sweeps, getting him open in space, throwing him some bubble screens, just giving him the ball does good things for your team. So I believe Rondell Moore, who was a second-round pick, Cliff Kingsbury clearly liked him. I believe he will be the wide receiver 2 in this Cardinals offense. And going at pick 139.1, you're going to be very happy with him, unlike you were with Christian Kirk over the last couple of years. Now, it may take Rondell Moore a couple of weeks to be good, but he's a bench player. He's a deep sleeper. He's not a guy you have to put in your lineup week 1, so that should be fine. And if he's not that guy, by week 4, week 5, you can obviously cut him. But I think that he will eventually mold into being a really good fantasy wide receiver, so I just hold him that whole time, unless, of course, I tell you in the season that I see nothing out of Rondell Moore, and then boom, you cut him. I like Rondell Moore a lot right now, though. Again, underdog ADP 139.1. 0.1. So let me know who your guys' favorite deep sleeper was in this video. Was it James Conner, John Brown, James White, Chris Herndon, or Rondell Moore? Let me know down below in the comment section. I love each and every single one of you guys. Thank you for watching this video. Happy Saturday. It is almost Sunday, and we only got a couple more Sundays until it's football Sunday, baby. Let's go. I love you guys all. Have a great rest of your guys' day. Stay safe as always. Good boy.